Welcome back. A federal judge skeptical over a 14-state effort to block DOGE from accessing federal data. Judge Tanya Chutkan doubting claims from 14 attorneys general that DOGE's actions are a threat to democracy, saying she's seen no evidence they are actually causing harm. She's expected to rule on this case later today. I spoke with House Republican Conference Chairwoman Lisa McClain on Sunday Morning Futures about Democrats' reaction to DOGE's findings.
And that's why you see the Democrats losing their mind, because we're actually uncovering all of this waste, fraud, and abuse. And they're losing their minds. Why? Because we're uncovering it. And they're actually advocating for us to continue the wasteful spending. And there's a lot of fear-mongering right now that's going on. Listen, I believe that there are a lot of savings and efficiencies that we can find before we have to touch mandatory spending. But let's not confuse savings with cuts, and let's not confuse reforms with cuts. Our goal is to make sure that we give the money and the programs to the people who need it most.
Sure.
I'm hard-pressed to believe that government runs so efficiently that there's not any savings that we can find.
Joining me now is New York Post columnist and Fox News contributor Miranda Devine. Miranda, great to see you. Thanks so much for being here, and you've written so much about this. Your reaction to how the Democrats are reacting to DOGE.
Good morning, Maria. Look, I just am baffled by them. I think that this is a very popular issue. Part of Elon Musk's remit into going into these government departments is to modernise their technology, and he's shown in so many different ways how antiquated it is, you know, going back to the 1960s. He's uncovered along the way so much, you know, waste and potential fraud and certainly abuse. All these social security numbers for people that either are too old to be alive or just don't exist. That's something that opinion polls are starting to show that the American public is behind. So the Democrats don't seem to have got their act together. They don't seem to have a leader. They don't have a proper message. All they are is rejecting and obstructing everything that Donald Trump is trying to do, even when it's as popular as what DOGE is doing. So I'm not surprised that they were pushed back in a federal court because really their arguments are hysterical and threadbare.
I mean, it's just incredible what Elon Musk is saying. And, you know, when he posted all of this, Miranda, and he said, having tens of millions of people marked in Social Security as alive at 150, 130, whatever it is, when they are definitely dead is a huge problem. So, I mean, how is this possible that these checks are just on automatic pilot and they just keep going out? He puts the whole list together. There was one person in the Social Security Administration record that was receiving benefits. He was 360 years old, okay? And then you've got thousands, hundreds of thousands, 150, 160, 130. To be clear, I Googled the oldest person in the United States is 114 years old right now. But still, I mean, it's just crazy. Your thoughts?
It really is crazy. And I mean, all that money going out, and there's been no visibility by the government on where it's going. No wonder we're in terrible debt and deficit.
Right.
It's the first time Donald Trump is the first president who's actually really trying to get to grips with this problem, and he's brought in the #1 expert in the world. You could not find anyone better than Elon Musk to come in with his big brain and his tech knowledge and his team of, you know, high IQ kids to actually try and sort out this enormous problem.
Right.
And I can't think of anyone better to have done it. And we are incredibly lucky that someone like Elon Musk is willing to roll up his sleeves and do this for nothing. And he doesn't need money. People are absurdly accusing him of doing this for his own personal benefit. He's the richest man in the world.
Right. It's just ridiculous. And, you know, I mean, it's everybody knows if you're balancing your own budget or you're balancing, you know, the state or the country's budget, the first thing to do is to stop digging the hole and understand clearly what you're spending on. So it's bizarre to think that the Democrats are going to come up with this idea, well, yeah, you can cut fraud, abuse, and waste without actually looking at where the money is going. I also have to ask you about Europe because VP J.D. Vance gave quite the speech in Munich the other day, warning Europeans about the dangers of censorship at the Munich Security Conference last week. Here's a bit. Watch.
What I worry about is the threat from within, the retreat of Europe from some of its most fundamental values, values shared with the United States of America. But when we see European courts canceling elections and senior officials threatening to cancel others, we ought to ask whether we're holding ourselves to an appropriately high standard. We must do more than talk about democratic values, we must live them. If you're running in fear of your own voters, there is nothing America can do for you. We shouldn't be afraid of our people, even when they express views that disagree with their leadership.
Miranda, you wrote about this in an op-ed in the New York Post. That was quite the speech. Your reaction?
It really was. It was a wonderful speech, and I think that J.D. Vance has done a service to European people by articulating exactly the American view of how sort of dastardly the censorship regime is that's falling down around Europe now. We had 3 German prosecutors actually on 60 Minutes the other night just proudly boasting about the fact that they have criminalised insults on the internet. You can go to jail for insulting someone on the internet and even reposting an insult. So this is quite frightening. And in fact, what led to the Nazi regime, unlike what Margaret Brennan was trying to say to Marco Rubio the other day, who slapped her down, I think that America, because of its First Amendment and its history of free speech, is the sort of beacon of light in the world as censorship does rear its ugly head in Europe. And I think Europeans themselves will be cheering on J.D. Vance, even if the political elites were aghast.
Yeah, what was she saying? Margaret Brennan was saying that free speech was weaponized during World War II. Free speech? There was no free speech.
Well, she said free speech was weaponized and led to the Nazi regime. In fact, there was enormous censorship, and it's arguable that the backlash to that censorship actually led to the rise of the Nazi Party, made their message sort of forbidden fruit. And then, of course, when the Nazis took office, they just destroyed all free speech, took over all media, and propagandized the people. So that was the opposite of free speech.
Yeah, right. Liz Peek, jump in here.
It's not, Vance was not just talking about free speech, but also the efforts in Europe to subvert elections. We have an election coming up days away in Germany, and there's been some talk that if it goes far right, they simply won't allow it. What is your thought about that?
That's right. And J.D. Vance actually quoted Thierry Breton, who's a former head of the EU but retired recently, who said that, well, we did it in Romania in terms of cancelling the election, and we can do the same in Germany if the AfD, which is this right-wing anti-immigration populist party, wins. And that's J.D. Vance just said you can't do that. You can't go around pretending that you like democracy while at the same time cancelling democracy.
Yeah, exactly. Let me get your take on Texas AG Ken Paxton launching this investigation into Chinese AI company DeepSeek. He says the company's allegiance to the Communist Party of China is a threat to American data privacy, calling it a proxy for China to steal data. Miranda, we've talked about this so much, from TikTok to other ways that the CCP is trying to steal our data, has been going on for decades. You write in an exclusive piece in the Post about this as well. Your reaction?
Well, I think it's terrific that Ken Paxton, who does this sort of thing a lot, he's sort of a lone ranger out there investigating things that are threats to the United States, and that includes DeepSeek, this sort of upstart AI group, and he's very concerned that it's propagating CCP propaganda and also invading Americans' privacy.
Sure. Miranda, great to see you as always. Thanks very much.